Forward to hearing from Lou.
You have the prayer too?
Yeah. That's some pretty good information.
Good. Yeah. Should have wore a hat, maybe some more sunscreen.
Very valid.
Anything about the parade, but I didn't
Couple
think
of
about
minutes.
the service that had. You said an hour.
My husband's face is really red right now too.
Yeah.
His is worse than yours, so
Okay.
you're okay.
I just feel like radiating, right? Just like the heat coming off here. Yeah.
I know when it's not like super hot, you don't notice it as much either, right?
Hey.
It was perfect. The crowds were
Was perfect.
just gorgeous day. Yeah. Yeah, I got invites from my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. I hear that so many times.
I'm gonna ask to pull F, just the GLRI one.
At least it's not on your head.
F, yeah. Yeah. Yep, I did a little more research from what the county sent over. It's helpful. Okay, good. Let me just throw. Ready? Good. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Commissioners, May 27, 2025. Doug, do you have the prayer for this evening?
Yes. Dear Lord, bless us this evening as we convene to address the issues pertaining to the well-being of Ottawa County residents. May your wisdom guide our discussions toward fair and successful outcomes. Grant us the courage, strength, and insight to make decisions that benefit all those we serve. Be present in our deliberations, bestowing your grace upon the choices we make as leaders. Thank you for being our guiding light today. Amen.
Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rachel?
Mr. Barry,
Present.
Mr. Dritzma, Mr. Zylstra.
Here.
Mr. Bonema,
Here.
Mr. Moss,
Here.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Here.
Mr. Teeples.
Here.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yeah, here, sorry.
Mr. Kyers,
Here.
Mr. Bruger,
Here.
Mrs. Medema.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have any correspondence to report?
None from me.
None? Okay. All right, so this is the time for public comments. I understand we have a few people.
Yeah, Lujan as course.
One correspondence.
Oh, there
The
is a
one on the
correspondence from Lou Hunt?
Did you, yeah, storm damage update?
I don't have that correspondence.
Oh.
So
So,
that's right here on the agenda. So it goes before the public
Come up to
comment.
the podium.
Lou, please.
There we go.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, for having me here to give you an update on the storm that hit our county and actually many other counties in Michigan, May 15th. I did prepare a PowerPoint for you that I can go over. Thank you. It was definitely a significant storm. We get a lot of these notifications from the National Weather Service every summer, every year. It's not uncommon for us to get these types of notifications. And then we start to spool up our resources so that we're ready. One of the really unique things about Ottawa County is that we border the lake and most of the prevailing storms come from the west. You don't really know, is the lake going to feed it or is it going to starve it? It's kind of an unknown. We look at Illinois, we look at Wisconsin. But again, it's kind of an unknown before it actually gets here. So we take these all seriously, each and every one. So what you're looking at is one of the reach outs that we had from the National Weather Service that talked about severe thunderstorms. And we were in that mid-range of severe threat. So that's why we're orange right there. Severe thunderstorms, generally speaking, can have large hail, damaging winds, tornadoes, a variety of different things. And again, we go through this many, many times every summer. It's just the nature of what we do. This is a radar image of what we had coming on the lake shore. So you can see that there's a nice storm front. Nice is not the word. There's a bad storm front coming through. It stretched our whole county. It actually stretched quite a bit of Michigan along the west side. And it was going to hit much of our county. So some of the immediate needs that we're already thinking about are, first of all, you start with life safety. That's like the most important thing. Then we're thinking about community types of property, even environmental property that we might all share. Then with that, we have, is there a way to get that top part off there? No. Okay. So, and then of course, private property after that. So we went into an activation with our emergency management personnel. We were all on alert for what was going to occur. One of the individuals in my staff is really well versed in weather. So he was certainly one of our point people with watching that weather event come over. We established what's called a Skywarn net, and that is emergency management volunteers that we train every year. We do it in conjunction with Kent County. They're trained weather spotters. There's about 300 people that are in that training every single year. Again, it's distributed between Kent and Ottawa counties. And they are in our community. And then what we do is we establish a network where all of those folks can give us real-time information. What are they actually seeing? Because we have the radar from the National Weather Service, and then we have real-time observations from our people. So we had that Skywarn net established. Then we had National Weather Service warning. So we had started with a severe thunderstorm watch. We ended up with 2 radar indicated rotations in Ottawa County. Those rotations are up in the sky. They're not confirmed like on the ground, but they're certainly enough for us to hit our outdoor warning sirens. We also had a severe thunderstorm destructive warning, which is just it's a relatively new product that the National Weather Service has done over the last few years. And really what it means is it could be very severe in the way the damages are going to be for us based on wind speeds. So it's usually 80 miles per hour or higher. And it can be hail 2.75 inches or larger. So you can imagine in both of those situations, even though it's not a tornado, we want to alert the public that that is occurring. So on that evening, we hit the outdoor warning sirens multiple times to alert everybody that we could. And then of course, the National Weather Service sends out wireless emergency alerts that you get on your cell phone, okay, if you receive those. We have 71 active sirens in Ottawa County. We have 2 in Park Township and then 4 in Zealand Township. Those are all actually owned and put in by the township, cities, and villages. And then we organize them. So we're the ones that are saying, yep, we're going to enact them, or no, we're not. We monitor dispatch closely, listening to all of that CAD traffic, what's happening with our police out there, our fire out there, what is going on. At that time, we didn't have any calls to us for needs from emergency management, but again, it was very early in the situation. We did end up getting a prioritization call from Grand Haven Township. They had been sitting on a line for a long, long time, a live wire, and it was on Lake Michigan Drive. So what we can do sometimes is we can prioritize for like Consumers Energy and call them and say, we need you to prioritize this area because it's a greater good type of situation. So we did do that. At the time, we had 13,000 customers out of power with Consumers Energy, which is really the larger part of our county. We had 1,600 with the Holland BPW. Interesting that the Holland Board of Public Works isn't just the city of Holland where they provide electricity. They also provide it to Park Township, and the area we'll be talking about is the Holland BPW's area. Grand Haven, BLP, and then Zealand as well. That's a really good piece of information for us is we're watching those maps. Where do we have those outages? Because usually that translates to what are the areas that have been hit the hardest, where we might find damage, that kind of a thing. So with that, we did wind chill surveys on Friday morning after the storm. And what that is, again, we had targeted a number of areas. We had Zealand Township, Park Township, we had Coopersville, Grand Haven area, and Port Sheldon Township. Those were our areas where we had a lot of outages. We went in and wanted to see firsthand what the damage looked like. I had talked to the fire chief in both Zealand Township and in Park Township, kind of knew where I was heading. And of course, Wakazu Woods was the significant area in Park Township. While out there, I had a lot of conversations with different residents. Nice people, very interesting, the perspective that they shared with me, which was nobody was hurt, nobody was killed. That really is a cool perspective when you think about how impacted some of these folks were, but that's what they were telling me. We also did a state police helicopter flight. So they went over the area, specifically Park Township, and to get us some overhead views of that area. I have that video if anyone would like to see it. It's helicopter footage, so it can be a little nauseating if you want to watch it. It kind of pans back and forth and stuff, but I'll be able to show you a lot of stuff in pictures as well. So the first place I went to was Zealand Township, and in Zealand Township, I ended up at 64th and Perry. It was a dairy barn that had its whole roof ripped off. And again, even these folks were just telling me, we're so glad that none of our cattle were hurt. What a great perspective from folks. But a lot of damage for sure, as you can see. The whole roof had been ripped off. And this is an overhead view that actually Zealand Township Fire took with their drone. And you can see a debris pattern that goes probably 200 yards away. I'm not a meteorologist, but I did let the National Weather Service know of this, and then also Wakazu, and so that they could go out and do surveys. And then with radar indications, with what they're seeing, all of that stuff, they make their indications of, was it a tornado, was it not, was it straight line winds, whatever it is. From an emergency management standpoint, whether it was a tornado or not really doesn't matter. That's an academic thing. For us, it's what damage do we have, regardless of whether the winds were swirling or whether they were straight line. And we can easily have, and even in this situation with Park Township, higher mile per hour winds in a straight line than we did with the tornado. So this was some pictures from Zealand Township. Then went over to Park Township in the Wakazu Woods area, largely a few different streets: Post, Wakazu, Oakhampton, Port Chester, Little Station, a very confined area actually. But what I saw was some significant damage, a lot of trees that were either on houses and had damaged them, some trees that had gone through those houses as well. And you can see from this picture, pretty significant. And I just have a few of those types of photos. One thing that struck me when I was out there, and I'm not a tree scientist by any stretch, but that's a lot of sandy soil right there. Those trees are very, very large, very, very old growth trees. And you can kind of see that the root ball that you have there isn't really what you would expect. You might expect something larger than that. Some more photos of houses that were damaged in Wakazu Woods. These are some of the worst ones. You had trees that came right through two-story homes. Some almost made it all the way to the ground floor. Very, very heavy old growth trees. A lot of them were beech trees. And again, the people that I talked to, especially Friday morning, were amazing, just saying, we had people in that house. There was no one that was injured, no one that was killed. Just a heck of a perspective, really. Some more pictures of houses. Yep. A lot of these houses now have tarps over them. So the very next steps from seeing that was to talk to the different fire chiefs that I had. The Zealand Township Fire Chief, we discussed it. Basically, they had some trees on houses, some roof damage, some outbuildings like we had just seen, barns, that kind of thing. And they had very minor roof damage to one of their fire stations. So they had what he characterized to me as largely shingles and a soffit. So our issue for damage was not as significant in Zeeland Township. Talked to the Park Township Fire Chief, again, the Holland Fire Chief to see what they might have, and then the Holland Board of Public Works. Interacted a lot with an individual from the Holland Board of Public Works, Steve Sprunsma. We talked a lot about, they had a lot of work in there in Wakazu Woods. And the question to him was, what do you need? What types of things are you in need of? And in our discussion, he said, oh, Lou, really need some help clearing the roads. So one thing we were able to do is put the Holland BPW and the Ottawa County Road Commission in connection with each other. The Road Commission was able to get in there that evening, cleared those roads, did an outstanding job. That for us was huge because, again, when you think about that hierarchy with life safety at the top, getting those roads open is really significant because we could have a class 1 in there, someone having a heart attack, whatever it might be, and they're not going to be able to get to that person and get out of there quickly. In addition to that, it opens up the roads so that the BPW can do their work. So that next step was Steve saying, hey, we need help with traffic. There's a lot of people coming through just to see the damage. It's really impeding our progress as a BPW. Okay, fine. So we had the road commission go out there. We got some road closure signs out there. That helps just for some people, right? But we were able to deploy some folks to some of our biggest traffic areas. There was 2 areas in there that we really had traffic problems. So we not only used some of our Ottawa County emergency management volunteers, but also some of our sheriff's office cadets. And they spent pretty much the whole day out there on Saturday. And what I was told is that made a huge difference. It allowed the BPW to be really aggressive, to be much more comfortable up in those bucket trucks, and to be able to really get after it. So we were really happy to help with that. And Steve said that was a big, big help. Then we started planning for damage assessment teams. What we're going to want to do is go in there. We have trained damage assessment folks, largely from our county equalization department, but also our emergency management volunteers, to go in there and do damage assessment. We had 4 teams, 3 to 4 people on a team. We set them up with equipment, logins to the Survey 123 system, which reports that information to the state, mapping assignments. We set up radio comms for all of them, et cetera. That went very, very well. Those folks did a great job out there. We even talked to the Red Cross, and I had talked to them both on the phone and then met with them out there in the Wakazu Woods area. And they said they were going to go door to door and see if any folks needed anything out there. The Holland BPW was largely done by 12 noon on Sunday, which is really pretty good for power restorations. Consumers Power took longer than that in the greater county. The sheriff himself was out there when I was at one of the traffic points, and he felt that we should be letting our road patrol know, hey, do some more patrols through this area, largely at night, because it's going to be dark in here. There's going to be people with their garages unsecured, that kind of thing. So we did, in fact, do that. So the results of our damage assessment in Park 4 destroyed homes, these are all FEMA definitions. 21 major damaged homes, 12 minor, and 11 affected. So destroyed based on FEMA definitions is really, it's going to need to be rebuilt. And then damage is, major structural damage, and there's going to be extensive work on it. Minor is, of course, minor, and 11 is more of a cosmetic type of thing. Just so you know, as part of that calculation, trees are not part of that. Outbuildings are not part of that. FEMA establishes that for us, and it really has everything to do with that house. Per our equalization department, we had about 8.1 million in private losses. That's probably even conservative, I would imagine. We talked to all of the residents that we went up to for that damage, and to a person, they all said that they were insured. So that's a really big deal, that people were in fact insured. No significant public damage. So when I talked to the 2 biggest affected public entities, being the Holland BPW and then Park Township Fire, Holland BPW estimated they might have spent between $350,000 and $400,000. Their yearly budget is $127 million. That's what I took off their website. So that's less than 1% of what they would have for a budget for the year. And then Park Township was less than 2%. The reason that's important is that's one of those threshold figures that we're looking at when we're trying to establish the damage that jurisdictions had. And usually it's about a 10% type of expenditure in the event based on their yearly budget. Again, heavily treed in Park Township, lot of sandy soil. I did notice that a lot of the trees that were down that had broken had been hollowed out, potentially by age or disease. I think it's just old growth. That's one of the perils. Continued next steps. I had continuous interactions with Park Township Fire Chief. Probably talked every day up until this weekend. A couple suggested debris sites, but Park Township was able to identify and secure a debris site. They did a great job with that. And that's a place called Chips at 130 or 31 and Quincy. So that's really a good thing. Road Commission and Park Township both had conversation recently about roadway debris. The Road Commission, to no surprise, came through kind of an emergency setting, pushing some of that road debris off. They're going to be addressing that stuff as they move forward. Lots of conversations with the State Police Emergency Management Homeland Security Division, just seeing, what they thought we should be doing, where we should be heading, et cetera. And that's exactly where we're at. Had a conversation with Team Rubicon. This is one of the national VOADs about coming in and maybe taking away large trees and stuff. And in that discussion, they said, we don't transport any debris whatsoever. So that was one of those things that was problematic, because that's really what was being talked about, was transporting a lot of that very, very heavy and large debris away. Took the National Weather Service for a survey of both Zeeland Township and Park Township. Again, that's kind of for them. And they identified an EF0 lowest level tornado in Zeeland Township, and then straight line winds in Wakazu. Interestingly enough, I know a lot of people get hung up on the idea of tornado versus not tornado, but in this instance, our straight line winds were in fact a greater mile per hour than our tornado was. So it's just damage. That's what we're looking at. And there's no mechanism to open up resources because someone identifies tornado versus straight line winds. It has nothing to do with it. Took the State Police Emergency Management Division for a survey of Wakazu Woods. Again, just to make sure there wasn't something we're leaving on the table. We're doing the right things. The remaining issue really is the issue of downed trees. One of the things that we were able to do was, a couple of weeks back, we had a very big fire in Borculo, and it was a place called Michigan Wood Fibers. Wondering if there could be some synergy there. They lost a lot of product. We, of course, have a lot of product. And talked to Nate Weaver, great guy over there. He's the owner. And I don't know if there's a business model for this or not, but I think just being a good citizen, he said, hey, if we can get the big trees within 10 to 15 feet of the roadway, and these are the large ones cut into like 6 to 8 foot sections, they could come through with a big logging truck with an arm and just lift those off and take them away. Certainly not going to solve the whole issue, but it is a really good option. So that's in the works. I had a conversation with an adjacent emergency manager who has a lot of experience, just to see if there was anything that we weren't doing. And that answer was no. A lot of conversations with stakeholders, had calls from state level, the county level, talked to the HOA president there in Wakazu Woods, and many of the citizens as well. So with state and federal resources, you probably heard that some of the counties south of us declared an emergency. I looked into that for why Allegan County declared an emergency. And basically what they were looking for was, they had a fire station that was destroyed, so that was uninhabitable. And they were very concerned about a water system issue that they thought they might have. So it was those two things really that they were looking to potentially recoup. Again, doesn't have anything to do with tornado. It's intended to ensure health and safety of persons and really to defray costs for entities and jurisdictions. For individuals, insurance is always the primary resource. There's part of that calculation. Are the people insured or are they not? It has to do with the house, and our people were. Never intended for insured private property losses. There's really not a mechanism for that for downed trees. A great example of that was the ice storm up in northern Michigan. Lots and lots of trees down everywhere. And there was a lot of folks that I think thought that someone might be coming to remove those trees from their residences. That's not the way it worked, and it's not the way it's working. For public entity, I just said this, about 10% of the yearly budget did that computation with two of our biggest that were affected. Section 19 state funds, those reimbursements are limited to public, again, not private damage and direct loss as a result of disaster and emergency. And we also learned that, unfortunately, that Section 19 fund account was used, not as a surprise, up in the ice storm up in northern Michigan, because of course it proceeded and it was a really big issue. Also offered to Park Township if they'd like to do a public meeting. Myself and my Emergency Management, Homeland Security Division, State Police partner, love to be there. Happy to have any conversation with the residents that they might want and answer some of those questions. I understand that some of those are tough questions with some of those trees that are down in those yards, but generally speaking, that's private property.
So first of all, on behalf of Ottawa County, we can't thank you enough. I don't think the county, certainly I didn't, until I've gotten more involved, understand the depth and the thoroughness of the work that you do in your management team. Absolutely incredible, all your volunteers. And to see how you handle this from the warnings to protect us as the storm was coming to where we are today. I mean, you haven't taken your foot off the pedal. And you just I can't imagine anyone doing it any better than what you did, Lou. I really can. I think we all agree. Commissioner Berry has been really involved. Jim, you want to say some things about it, but those folks in Wakazu Woods and Zealand Township that got affected, God bless them. And this is why we're community. And when you get the road commission and you get the DPWs of the different municipalities involved and the sheriff's office and everybody else, this just again shows the greatness of Ottawa County. And it was led by you. And so, thank you. Jim, you want to particularly?
Yeah, just add to that, I was really pleased with the response that I saw out there, where most of that damage happened along Post Road. I live about 3 blocks away from that, and you couldn't even tell if the wind had blown the night before, once you got away from that debris area. But really intense destruction on some of those houses. Some of the photos just showed an example of just a few of the houses. But I met Lou out at the scene with Sheriff DeBoer, and I was glad to see that. And police were doing traffic control, and I was filled in that road commission had been there Friday night and had gotten those roads open, and that was a big project because those trees, you're saying that they're huge 100-foot tall trees, and they're either beech or oak, and either one's about as heavy a wood as you can get. But lots of communication. I would reiterate what you said. As I went around and talked to folks, I kept hearing again and again, at least nobody got hurt, and people were really thankful for that. And that was a great thing to hear. Also, neighbors were taking neighbors in. If their home was destroyed, they were just bringing neighbors in. I heard stories that people were bringing grilling hot dogs and hamburgers and bringing it to the BPW guys, and people working on the roof guys and the tree guys that were out there. So folks in the community really got on board with it, and that part was a good experience to see that in the community. But Lou, I want to thank you for everything you did on that.
Thank you.
Anybody else say anything? I didn't know if I said anything about the road commission. Wow. And what was the company, Nate Weaver?
It's Michigan Wood Products, and I was unaware that they're also Mulch Pro, they're also chips. So they have a prior relationship with Park Township in a good way, and they're going to be a debris site for them.
Well, our thanks to them too. So thanks again. Okay, the next thing on the agenda, public comments.
Point of order. I live in Marigold Woods. When do I get to speak?
In the public comment, this is your time. Just identify yourself, sir, and tell us where you.
I made your card out, okay? My name is Bill Clare. I live at 281 Little Station, and I'm in the middle of a disaster area. No kidding. If you haven't looked at it, you don't appreciate it. Pictures do not do it justice. The people in Marigold Woods, Wakazoo Woods, and all along Post are not getting the support they need. We need help from you. I've talked to you personally, Bill. We need help from this committee. Insurance only covers what hits the house or causes property damage. And that is going to be a big portion of it. But there are 200 and some trees down in this area. The homeowners association for Marigold Woods does not have the resources to clear the areas that are designated as common areas. We need help from the state. We need help from Park Township. We need help from this group right here to help get rid of these and return this area to something like it was. It'll never be like it was for another 100 years. There are people such as my neighbor across the street. She lost her husband some time ago. She has trees down in her backyard, and her insurance says didn't hit the house. Too bad. The neighbors, same lady lost her husband just 4 or 5 weeks ago. Fortunately, unfortunately, it did hit her house, and they'll take care of it. But if you go down Post Road, you will see a disaster area. I kid you not. It is a total disaster area. And if you like to come, I will give you a personal tour of this area. I have spoken to our constituents. There was a lady on Post, an elderly lady whose house is major damage, and she's now living in a motel room. That's not fun. I've done it for years. That is not good. The personal tragedy of this is far greater than you can possibly imagine. My house was hit, the estimates are $60,000 worth. I have good insurance, okay? But we need help from this group. We need you to address the tree problem. If we get that solved somewhat, that would go a big step. If the road commission can go down Wakazoo and clear the easement 27 feet on either side of the road, that would be a big help,
Thank you, Mr. Clare.
okay?
We
There are things that could be done. We need to be action-oriented.
thank you. Thank you very much.
I spent many years at Hayworth, and when we had an problem like this, we acted immediately. It's like government stands in the way of the people. And we need your help to help solve that. I can't understand that.
We thank
The
you.
people
Thank you.
there, the one person on Oakhampton, okay, you talked about her house was completely destroyed, okay? Multiple trees, has a lot of trees in the back. She got a quote on what it's going to take to clear that.
Mr. Clare,
$120,000. Based upon that, my estimate is it's going to take $500,000 to $1 million to clear all the dead stuff out.
thank you, Mr.
I'm
Clare.
not an expert, okay? But we don't get communications. I knew nothing about this meeting up until Nancy DeBoer was nice enough to call me this afternoon.
Well, thank you for coming, Mr. Clare. We hear what you're saying. Thank you for letting us know.
I urge you not to leave here tonight till you come up with a way of helping the people of Wakazoo, Marigold, and Post.
Thank you.
We implore you to do that,
Thank you.
okay? I don't know what else to say except the emotional tragedy is more than you can possibly stand.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Number 2, Jessica Van Vangenhoven, Allendale Township.
This is 1 second, Howard.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Vangenhoven. I live in Allendale Township. I am also an employee of Ottawa County Parks. I came today just to share with you some of the new cool things that we have going on and invite you to participate. So the first thing to talk about today, which is starting here soon as school comes to a close, we are offering our first ever all-day summer camp. So that's just something you think about when you think about parks, right? Summer camps. We had to work really hard to get a couple of sites licensed through Michigan's LARA division. And we will be offering camps for 11 weeks from June to August for ages 6 to 13. We've got a number of weekly themes. They're all screen-free, focused on enjoying the outdoors from art to insects to survival. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old who are eligible camp age, and they are both arguing over which theme they would like to participate in. So we have not worked that out yet, but it should be a lot of fun. Regardless of the theme, each week we're going to allow all of the campers to safely try archery. We're doing this in partnership actually with the Sheriff's Department Community Policing Team. So that's a really exciting partnership. Super stoked about it. And these will all be taking place, I should probably tell you where, at Hager Park and Grand River Park. So we'll be in the Jenison area for now. So parents and guardians are welcome to register their children online. We do have sibling discounts. If you have any help or if you need any help scheduling, don't hesitate to contact us. Don't get frustrated by the online registration. Give us a call at the Nature Center and we can help you through. And yeah, we're just super excited to be offering this to the community. A few other things to mention. We recently, last fall, welcomed a new staff member and a newly created position, the Recreation, Health, and Wellness Program Lead. Since joining our team, she has brought over 15 and counting programs to the county, all with really wonderful success. Topics ranging from ethical foraging to trailside first aid. Actually, just last week, Thursday, she led a training for the Ottawa County Community Emergency Response Team, which is that volunteer-based group that falls under the Sheriff's Department. So again, just working on broadening out our programs, expanding new things to the community, and here to say we hope to see you and your kiddos in the park soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have flyers if anybody wants one.
Thank you.
Number 3, Dan Zimmer, Port Sheldon Township.
Dan Zimmer, Port Sheldon Township. I would like to go on the public record concerning judicial venue. Ottawa County judges recused themselves from hearing the Crockery Lake contract matter several months ago. Case 2024-8070-CZ was to be heard by Scott Nadeau in Kent County Circuit Court. Case 2024-8070-CZ was originally assigned to Judge John H. Halsing and was reassigned by the State Court Administrator's Office to Judge Scott Nadeau. The claims arising out of the transaction or occurrence alleged in this complaint was dismissed to facilitate Ottawa County and Board of Commissioners to litigate. In the matter of case 2025-0000008240 CK, Ottawa County and Ottawa County Board of Commissioners versus Chester Township, the matter is before Judge John Halsing. The material facts remain the same. Consistency is a measure of transparency. It seems odd that Judge Halsing recused himself before and now grants favor in his courtroom.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Zink?
Yeah, Howard Fink. I'm the manager in Park Township. So just thank you, Lou, for your presentation. Thank you, Bill, for your comments. I've had a number of conversations with both elected and appointed officials, so I'm not going to go over any details, but I figured I'd just say if you wanted to chat with me about the storm and some feedback, that I'd be happy to do that. I think at some point it would be helpful to for some entity to call a postmortem and talk through the issues and how we can do it better. Right? I mean, I think Lou and his team have done a great job, but there's always an improvement. And in time of an emergency, it's good to come and reflect of potentially what is better communication or better process on how we can do it better. That's not to take anything away from Lou and his team and the sheriff's office and his team doing a great job, but that would be my thoughts. If any of you have any questions or would like to speak with me, I'm available. Most of you know me and have an easy way of contacting me. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zink, for everything you do too. Anyone else from the public like to make any comments? Is there anyone online? Gina, no? Okay, so we move on with the agenda. The next thing on the is the approval of the agenda. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
One opposed? Okay. The next thing on the agenda is as various consent resolutions. Need a motion, please?
Motion to approve the consent resolutions.
Get a second?
Second.
I would actually like to move one thing off of consent.
Okay.
I'd like to move B,
B.
the contract, the post-execution ratification of contracts.
What number?
So that would be 7B.
7, you move it, it'll go to 7G. Is that how you seeing it, Sylvia?
It would go under an action request then.
Yeah.
Right? We're taking out of consent and we're moving it. to
It'll be
action.
7G.
I think it would be 8G.
Oh, 8, it's 8. Yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
would we remove item E as well? Thank you.
7, item D, you're saying?
E, sorry.
Is that E like Edward?
Yep. Mental health funding resolution.
One more, Mr. Chair. Item F, please.
We'll move E to 8H.
Mhm.
And HI will be F. Anything else?
I'm sorry, what was that last one you said?
F will be 8I.
Sylvia did one.
Okay? Okay. Give a motion on the consent resolution then. Get another one?
No, we do. We're good.
We're all good. We're good. Okay. So we can take a, maybe we should take a roll call? Yeah.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Bruegger,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. Now let's go to action items 8. The appointment committee, alignment committee?
Yeah, ready to read those?
Yes.
All right, I'll take it. Suggested motion for 8A to approve the recommendation from the Appointment and Alignment Committee that the Chair of the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners assign a commissioner to the vacant member seat on the Lakeshore Regional Entity Substance Abuse Oversight Policy Board in accordance with Rule 2.3 of the Rules of the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners and to appoint Jordan Jortsma through December 31, 2025.
Support.
Fitting that Jordan's not here so we can appoint him.
Any comments?
Couldn't resist.
Any other comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passed. All right, next one, Josh.
Regarding the Land Bank Authority, item 8B, to approve the Land Bank Authority's recommendation to change the term ending dates for the following seat. Seat I, ID number 397, Citizen, Ottawa County, to be changed from 12/31/28 to 12/31/25. Note, this seat is currently held by Jordan Jordsma. Seat 8, ID number 231, Township Representative, to be changed from 12/31/29 to 12/31/30. This one is currently vacant. Seat 9, ID number 236, Township Representative, to be changed from 12/31/23 to 12/31/29, currently held by Lori Van Heitzma.
Support.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
I'm getting a workout tonight. Item 8C, Land Bank Authority appointment. Suggested motion to approve the recommendation from the Land Bank Authority to appoint Thomas Onk to the Township Representative vacancy beginning immediately and ending December 31, 2030.
Support.
Comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion passes.
Item D, Parks and Recreation Commission. Suggested motion to approve the updated Ottawa County Parks and Recreation Commission bylaws and rules of procedure.
Support.
Yes, I made that motion.
Any questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. Next.
All right, item 8E, Community Corrections Advisory Board realignment. I move to approve the reassignment of Amanda Sheffield from the general public seat to the service area seat on the Community Corrections Advisory Board with the same term ending December 31, 2026, and to recommend the revision of the Community Corrections Advisory Board bylaws to remove the general public seat.
Support.
Any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passed.
Regarding the Housing Commission ordinance, I move to approve the amendment to ordinance 400.4.2, section 400.2.4B, striking the phrase "subject to the ratification of the Board of Commissioners."
Support.
Comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Doug.
Yeah, I know the motion here is for section 400.424B, but I would like to go up a little bit in our ordinance. We modified our ordinance back in 2021. And there's a paragraph here that reads, "The Housing Commission shall have a duty to perform the following tasks. Attain and maintain certification as a public housing agency, PHA, by the Federal Housing and Urban Development Agency, HUD, in order to promote the acquisition and distribution of federal and state vouchers in Ottawa County." So when we set up the Housing Commission, reestablished in 2019, that was one of our primary goals, right? And that's one of the reasons why we decided to take the route that we did, using PA 18 of 1933 as the route to set up a public housing commission, which would have, pretty robust powers. And spending some time on the weekend over this issue, I realized that we had started that process, but we had never finished that process. And the reality is that the state of Michigan is not awarding PHAs at this point in time. The way I see it, because we're not a PHA, because we're not seeking to be a PHA, we're really not living through this ordinance document, right? And if we're not living through the ordinance document, for me at least, we are not participating in PA 18 of 1933, which gives us a series of statutes as to what the Housing Commission should and shouldn't be doing. And I know that, we're looking at something farther down, but we're looking at something farther down because state statute apparently says that we have to, right? But I guess my overall point is, if we're not pursuing a PHA, we're definitely not one right now. I personally am left in the position that, we're not subject to state statute here, right? Because the whole purpose of entering into this ordinance, having the bylaws, is that you would get PHA status. And without PHA status, in a sense, you're not bound by state statute. I know we had that discussion in committee, in a slightly different sense. But having been on Housing Commission when it started in 2019 through 23, I think what they're doing now is what we wanted it to do. We wanted it to be the locus of activity for housing in Ottawa County. I don't think that the Housing Commission now wants to be promoting the acquisition and distributing state and federal vouchers within Ottawa County. They really won't, because they're not a PHA and they won't be a PHA. I guess it's a long way of saying I'd like to table this entire measure so we can kind of look at that and maybe re-envision what the Housing Commission looks like. Do we need to follow state statute, or can we make it look like something like the Groundwater Board that is more, of a creation of this board and tasked with, carrying out activities that we really want it to be carrying out, as opposed to, being in one sense handcuffed by state statute for something that we really are not going to pursue, right? So I guess the motion is to table this motion and bring it back to acquisition and alignment.
Got a motion to table this issue. We have a second? None? Okay, then we're back to the original motion to strike the phrase "subject to the ratification of the BOC." Any comments on that?
Yeah, I do have a comment on that, unless somebody else does.
So it's a separate issue, so let somebody else take it, we'll come back.
Sure. In regard to Doug's comments there, we chatted a little bit this afternoon. I understand better his concerns. And I do think there is an opportunity to, in the future, with the Appointment Alignment Committee, reevaluate what the Housing Commission, Housing Commission is doing and how much they're living up to their original intent. And if at that time we want to reevaluate it and make it more like the Groundwater Board as a committee and make that recommendation, I'm absolutely in favor of discussing that. I think for me, moving forward with the motion as written and as recommended by the Appointment Alignment Committee puts us in alignment with our current interpretation of that board. So I'm in favor of moving forward with it as written.
Any other comments? Doug?
Yeah, and in committee, we did talk a little bit about, some of the language there, what, ratification may mean, and, is there another word that we could put in place of ratification? And I was in favor of that, precisely because we have a policy on appointments to boards and commissions, and I'm just going to read the first sentence. The Ottawa County Board of Commissioners will review all applications for positions on boards and commissions. Further, it says, under procedure, notice of open positions. A list of all open positions shall be maintained by the county clerk. A list of open positions will expand to include all appointments that expire 4 months prior to the expiration of the term. Section C, committee review. The Board of Commissioners assigns the task of reviewing the applications to the Talent Recruitment Committee, which is obviously a different name now, which has established a subcommittee to review and interview applicants and make recommendations on appointments. The names of all applicants and committee recommendations shall be submitted to the Board of Commissioners. Which, kind of a long way of saying that we do have a policy that we've set up to appoint members of the public to our boards and commissions. And I appreciate, Commissioner Brugger's point on maybe revisiting, some of my earlier comments. But I go back to the idea, if we get rid of subject to the ratification of the Board of Commissioners and make this purely something that the chairperson of the BOC does, we are, in a very real sense, invalidating our own policy on appointments to boards and commissions. We talked about maybe substituting a word in committee and make a motion to amend that phrase to say instead of ratification, recommendation, which, you know, if we're gonna, for the time being, you know, view ourselves as subjects to state statute, recommendation instead of ratification would still fit within that parameter, but would also live into our own policy on appointments to boards and commissions, which I think was set up for very sound reasons, you know, transparency and accountability and, you know, making sure all commissioners have a part in that process. So the motion would be, instead of deleting subject to the ratification of the Board of Commissioners, would read subject to the recommendation of the Board of Commissioners.
Do we have a second of that, on that? Good. All right, so anybody else have a comment on the existing motion? Melissa?
I just would like to make a comment. So state statutes should always trump county policy, and there might be an opportunity for us to revise that policy that would say something with making sure that we're not, I guess, going against any state statute when we're looking at our policy. There might need to be a little tweaking of that policy. And I think we talked at length about that at our committee meeting, and I felt satisfied. So I'm good with the motion as is.
So that's the change, it's because you're satisfying state statute? That's implied, that's what this is.
And one thing that you should be aware of, John, because you're not part of that committee, is that applications do come in for the Housing Commission, same as any other committee. And the one difference is that in the past, at least, what's happened then is those applications would go to your box. And if you wanted to have insight from any commissioners here, that doesn't give you, if you want our opinions, I mean, you can definitely ask.
I'm trusting your committee to do the work. And so if you guys, that committee making recommendations, I'm gonna feel pretty good about that because I trust your committee.
But if we pass
But you're
this,
right.
unfortunately, that won't happen.
Just so you know, for the Housing Commission though, what state statute says is that you have the authority to appoint who you would like to without the board's, basically without the board's approval.
So let me make sure I'm clear on this. If someone wants to be on that commission, will they not still apply through the?
They would still send in their application.
Okay.
They don't have to go through an interview process. You could look at all the applications. So if you would like us to, you'll just need to make sure that you're connecting with Josh as the chair, if that's the process that you'd like to see happen.
Josh, did you hear that?
I heard that loud and clear,
Yes,
and that's
we're
absolutely
still-
fine. And
Chair.
Yeah.
Sorry, Josh, would you have a point?
I think my follow-up was, I agree with Allison's assessment of that, and if you would like to defer to us to pick our brain as to who we'd recommend, we'd be happy to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Doug?
No, I think one point that we just had in committee is that I appreciate what you're saying, Commissioner Miedema, but there's no guarantee that that will happen. Because we have a policy on boards and commissions, which by taking this action will invalidate the policy. of both-
Right,
As it relates to the Housing Commission. So I just want to be clear that John can appoint, if we take this measure, John can appoint whoever he wants. There's no public notice. Residents do not need to be advised of any openings, which I don't think is the correct path.
I have a comment.
Bill?
So county tries to follow best practices. County accepts applications online. No one's trying to, pull a fast one and put someone on the Housing Commission with no one knowing. I keep hearing the word invalidate. I'm not quite sure why that's the word. I support the motion because it will follow state law. So I support the change and, I think it's the best decision.
Okay.
And quick comment.
Yeah.
I would agree. We want to follow state law on this, but I think as our discussion has progressed, it's clear that housing authority is likely to get a pretty big overhaul top to bottom. It's a critical issue yet at this point, housing in general, and it's an important part, but in the realities of funding today, I guess we need to kind of re-envision that a little bit.
Yeah, certainly from my perspective, as long as I'm chairman, I'm going to defer and look for the recommendation of the committee. But that's just me as chairman. I mean, could potentially change like Doug is talking about. So I think we as a body need to be mindful of that and watchful of that if we think it's not being handled correctly. That's the only thing I could suggest if we're staying in compliance with the law. So, okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, motion passed. So now we're going back to agenda item 7B, the post ratification of contracts. I think this was yours, Sylvia.
Yeah, so then I would just like to make a motion that we to split the motion or divide the motion so that we consider contract number 2603 for MPHI separately.
2603, contracts separately.
Yes, so that was on page 13 of the packet.
Yep.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor of removing contract 2603 from the ratification of contract list, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay. Let's go back to the original motion then. With the exception of that one contract,
Want me to read it?
please.
I move to ratify all contracts, with the exception of the one formerly noted, for the period of April 18, 2025 to May 20, 2025, currently pending on the post-execution ratification list as authorized under Section 4D2 of the Ottawa County Contracting Authority, authorization and form policy.
Support.
Any comments, questions that we haven't hit? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Want to do a roll call with the money?
You're right. Okay.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Bruegger,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. Let's move that contract that we just talked about, 2603 to item 8G. Okay? Come back on it in a second. So the next one we're looking at is 7E, the mental health funding resolution. I think this was yours, wasn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we did talk about this issue in committee and, you know, I want to kind of reiterate my,
Do you have a motion? For discussion?
oh, sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution addressing mental health funding shortfalls at the state.
Oh, second that. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
we talked about this issue in committee and, you know, my first point was simply to make sure that textually as we're as good as can be. And I noticed that we're still with the 50-50 on this third whereas. And I don't know if we can talk about that real quick. Maybe we can make a quick motion to amend that. I definitely don't want to approve a resolution that is not as textually as. So I guess the motion is to amend in the third whereas, instead of 50-50, 65% federal and 35% state.
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay. So explain that, could you, Doug?
Sure. Mike is here, so if he wants to reiterate our discussion in committee,
Oh, he's here, okay.
you drove all the way out here to Fillmore, so you might as well get the podium.
I didn't see you back there, Doctor, so.
I come to all the meetings as my duty. What Commissioner Zylstra was speaking of is that corporate counsel originally drafted this to reflect the general principle of a map. The suggested motion is the actual match relationship in the state of Michigan as it is today. It could change. So when this was originally drafted, the general language literally says generally 50-50 was to reflect the relationship. I have no comment besides support with putting in that language if it's important to you to have the specific FMAP in there for now, subject to change anytime.
So what he's proposing is accurate?
Correct. And we were trying to have a resolution that just reflects the general concept of a federal match without having to get into the specifics because it can change. So that's what they were going for.
Is that precisely accurate?
It is at the moment.
Okay.
That's why we left it generally.
We're passing this, in the moment, so I'm comfortable getting more specific if there's no reason not to.
Would the language still be generally 65-35?
Correct.
So the
I would
word
recommend
generally
that.
would Still be in
Mhm.
there.
It accomplishes all of the goals in being a little bit more precise.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
I don't know if, did we have a second? Was that second?
I seconded
Okay.
the motion, yes.
Comments on Doug's motion to change that language to or generally 65-35.
Correct.
You left generally in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine by me. He did say exactly 65-35, but we'll just go with generally, then we're in the ballpark, so we're playing ball.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's go back to the resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go back to the resolution as amended.
Dr. Bashir, I can address you from there or from here. And I guess the reason why it was important to me is because I just want the public to know that the federal FMAP is important, 65% versus 35. So the federal contribution to our Medicaid in the state of Michigan is an important part. And I think we've seen over the last week or two that there are plan changes at the federal level. I am supportive generally of what's going on in this resolution, so I'll be supporting that, but urging you to follow up in CMH, produce a resolution that addresses those federal cuts, because at a 65-35, whatever happens at the federal level, and if we're talking $800, $900 billion at the federal level, you and I have talked about that, and that's a catastrophic, occurrence with the state of Michigan. So I definitely encourage CMH to bring us that resolution for the federal part. And we can, use our advocacy as strongly as possible. So
We'll be doing that, and thank you.
thank you.
So I'll make the motion to approve the resolution as amended, addressing mental health funding shortfalls at the state.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we're going to 7G, the Great Lake Restoration Initiative Funding Resolution. I think this was yours, Joe.
So the motion is to approve the resolution supporting continued funding for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative.
I'll second it.
Okay, I just have a quick statement. I was able to do some more research and thankful for everything that was sent over in discussions. So I have a few thoughts on GLRI that I wanted to share with the board from my research. GLRI has been renewed by Congress multiple times over the last 15 years, probably more. Some of the work that is done by recipients of GLRI funding is very important. An interesting note is that President Trump actually tried to slash 90% of this funding in 2019. He was then later talked out of it by House reps and congressmen. So it's my understanding that funding for the GLRI was not included in the big, beautiful bill that passed the House last week. It is a separate item. And the resolution presented today asks us to advocate on behalf of Congress that they will appropriate $3.5 billion over the next 7 years. We don't have specific items that this money is used for. It's much more a pass it and then you'll get to see what's in it type of thing. It's a renewal. But you can look at their history of what they've spent the money on and their long-term goals. So I looked at their long-term goals. It includes things like safe water, eliminating harmful algae blooms, and support for something called Justice 40. Justice 40 was a whole of government initiative under the Biden administration to address what they called the devastating effects of climate change and to promote environmental justice. On day one, President Trump abolished race-based environmental justice initiatives. And so that is no more. He ended it with the executive order titled Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit-Based Opportunity. So thankfully, all the Justice 40 content has been deleted from the White House website. It's not there anymore. You can look at it in the archives. And ideally, the EPA would, probably take a fresh look at GLRI and working with Congress to maybe improve, put guidelines around some of this funding. But to underscore the importance of looking at detail, I want to highlight some additional information that we all received about GLRI. So for example, Ottawa County has received grants, or organizations within Ottawa County have received grant funding from GLRI, from the funding that was appropriated through Congress. The first example we were given was Audubon Society. So they got about 500 grand in 2021 from GLRI funds. The project was related to wetland restoration. So they have a report on what they did. It's a 71-page report. So I read through it. The report contained all kinds of information about habitats, bird migration, climate change, lots more. On page 21, they reported that conservation is only successful when racially diverse groups of people are included in the process. Then it goes on to continue to explain that visitors in Ottawa County's natural areas tend to be largely white, wealthy people. The report goes on to mention how Black and African American populations from Kent County could engage with natural areas, and how various groups supporting DEI ideology should extend their work in Kent County into Ottawa County in an effort to continue pushing their ideology. So I just found this interesting. And there were several examples provided of what GLRI funding has provided related to Ottawa. And again, some good work, but I think when you look at details, details matter. So I figured I should research Audubon a little bit more. So I asked 3 questions. What's their stance on DEI? How much money do they pay their CEO? And what is their true purpose? And again, this is just the first example. I just picked the first one that we were given just to get more context into what this is. So their stance on DEI, their website is filled with progressive language and information about creating things like dedicated space for LGBTQ bird lovers. They even have a public climate pledge on their website that you can sign online to tell elected officials, quote, "We are in a climate emergency and it is wreaking havoc on our communities, our lands, and our waters." So bottom line for me is this isn't the type of organization that I want receiving taxpayer dollars. The second question was, how much money do they pay their CEO? This was really interesting. So I looked at their 2021 information because that's the example that we received. In that year, they listed their former CEO working 0 hours per week and making $1.2 million in compensation. I thought that was kind of strange. They also had a new CEO who worked full-time and received about $700,000. So don't know what was going on there, but interesting. Their employees are very highly paid. So I kind of went a little further into their financials and I asked, what is their true purpose? That's where it got really interesting. And I think what I'm about to highlight underscores what has been happening in the United States at the federal level, the state level, and the local level, and why county commissioners need to be considering details when they're asked to support a resolution promoting $3.5 billion in spending. So Audubon does not have its own financial statements. Its operations are consolidated with the National Audubon Society Action Fund. So what that means is that Audubon, the one that got the money, is a 501c3 portion wrapped inside a 501c4 political organization. Their mission, aligned with the Democrat Party, is to mobilize millions of Americans and advance equity, diversity, and inclusion. Their website homepage currently says, if you look at it right now, birds can't vote, but you can, in huge letters. So if this is the type of work that GLRI is supporting, I don't support it. The United States is $77 trillion in debt. DOGE is slashing fraud, waste, and abuse. The Trump administration and congressional Republicans should take a pause on GLRI and put guidelines on it before it's reauthorized. That's the information I brought to share.
Anyone else like to address this issue?
I'll just add a couple comments, and that is, I appreciate the information that you brought, Commissioner Moss. I think one of the things that is alarming to me is that we're looking at an increase, a substantial increase over what has traditionally been allocated to this program. I think it's an additional 200 million a year. And, you know, as we watch on the federal level, how much waste is being found right now and just kind of scattered to the wind, I don't think it's a time to be adding another $200 million a year to a program without, you know, really strict things outlined as to where that money is going to go. So for that reason, I'll also be a no vote.
Don't you think this program will be, excuse me, Commissioner, don't you think this program will be fine-tuned before it comes here again, Joe? Why do you think it's going to be left go the way it was?
Well, it's, you know, there's no guarantee.
Back to 21, why do you think it's going to be with the new administration?
No, I think they're making changes.
That's why won't you agree with his changes?
I agree with the changes that DOGE and other departments are trying to make right now at the federal level. But when you look specifically at this item, it's asking a county board to support a federal budget item. It doesn't even really make sense that it's here.
It'll be a federal budget item that'll be approved by the new administration, which you approve of, correct?
Correct.
So it just seems to me that it would be approved by you since it's going to be fine-tuned by the new administration. That'll come back to us and help us preserve the Great Lakes in a better tuned way. That's my opinion.
But so we don't know that it's actually going to come back to us. We don't know it's going to change. They're actually just increasing the dollar amount. I actually support significant cuts at the federal level, and this is another increase. So while I support the direction that the current administration is going in general, and I appreciate them abolishing DEI and making changes so that there's not waste, fraud, and abuse, without any specific details on spending priorities, without any specific projects listed, I don't know why I would not support that. And I don't know why other board members would either.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so I would say that I would support this bill if it had already been through that kind of a process with high scrutiny at the federal level.
Agree.
And, you know, things had already been cut. We knew it had gone through, you know, they'd gone through the fine tooth comb and been super careful on what they're allocating money to, because there probably are some good portions of this. So for instance, if it went through that kind of a process, it was about to be voted on, and we were then sure of what we were actually voting for, then that might be a point to take it back up again and consider it. But right now it just feels like a blank check, you know, for whatever pet projects there might be. Again, probably some good work contained within it, but not enough careful scrutiny given to it yet at this point.
How was it that the resolution came to the planning commission? Where did it come from?
I don't know.
It came from Parks.
Parks? Jason, do you want to address this at all?
So Parks Commissioners ask us to bring this forward for the Parks Commission to approve it and then bring it forward to the Board of Commissioners. So Great Lakes make up 21% of the globe's freshwater and 84% of North America's freshwater. So every dollar invested sees a return of about 3.25. So there were a number of projects, Stearns acquisition, we did extensive restoration and ecological enhancements at Ottawa Sands. So, you know, it's interesting, Joe, I didn't catch that President Trump during his first term slashed the funding. I saw,
Wanted to, he didn't do it.
well,
But-
I saw a commitment that he would increase it to
Yeah.
go in 2020. So,
Yes.
you know, we've utilized it for the hemlock woolly adelgid, various invasive species that we battle here. So I understand there's also some hot button issues, certainly respect that, but you know, it's really instrumental in some of the work we're doing and trying to do the natural resources management and preservation here. So,
I understand that there was, like, if I'm reading, Kelly Rice sent us a communication on this, that we all got it, laying out some of the grants that have been given Ottawa County, including 600,000 for that hemlock woolly matter, and other trout unlimited, other things, $200,000 over the years, and more stuff, shoreline restorations, things like this. So what's, if you don't mind, why are you asking the board for a resolution on this?
so it just provides support to our legislators. So it's been supported by both Congressman Heisinger and Skolton, and it provides them with letting them know their constituents here in West Michigan would support that, and it arms them with that background. So that would really be the intent of providing that, is giving them, you know, letting them know their representatives here in Ottawa County support that. So.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment that I'll be voting in support of this. Thank you for sharing the extra info there. The few down from, well, one of the whereases says Great Lakes Restoration Initiative Act of 2025 has been introduced by U.S. Reps Hillary Skolton, Democrat of Grand Rapids, and for my district, and Bill Heisinger, Republican, Zealand, and for the southern half of Ottawa County, and 30 co-sponsors. And I looked at it just the way you did, Jason, that this is an encouragement to them to continue on their work and a bipartisan effort to put the Great Lakes at the forefront of Congress's mind. And for me personally, coming from District 10 with Grand Haven, Spring Lake, and Ferrysburg, the invasive Asian carp is a huge detriment to the Great Lakes, and a significant portion of the funding from this goes to that. So I recognize that there are some things that could be cut, and I'll look forward to Congress making those cuts, but I will absolutely be voting in support of this. We've got charter fishermen, we've got the Great Lakes, and fishing is one of the largest economic, what do I want to call it, vital components of our economy in Ottawa County, and especially in West Michigan District 10. So I'll be voting in support of this. That's how I got it.
I'd just like to comment, I'll be voting for this as well. It's, my brother, Congressman Heisinger, this has been an issue that's been very important to him since he was elected. It's been a struggle every year to secure funding on this. The reason it's gotten increases is they've been able to make a better case that it's effective and there's a need that's there. In a federal appropriation picture, you're also competing against California and New York and the coast for funds for something in these lines. And it's, you know, as we've seen, there are projects that have a positive impact here in Ottawa County. I think with Lee Zeldin as head of EPA now and an administration that's different before, I mean, some of the issues that Chairman Moss was concerned about, I think are likely to be addressed, but to reject this because of things like that, I think it's akin to throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. And I'll be voting for this.
Nelson?
I guess I'm just going to reiterate some of what Commissioner Rhodey had stated. I do have similar concerns, I think, that Commissioner Moss brought up, and I guess wonder if the money that is maybe not been spent well, from my perspective anyway. Perhaps that increase would not be needed if it's gone through with that fine tooth comb. And I guess I have a hard time from my shoes that I'm in currently in the county commissioner seat, asking to increase the annual funding cap to 500 million per year. And I would just say, like, I would like to see more details before I would vote on this. And at the same time, I support a lot of the work that was mentioned, the good work, like with the LG blooms, like what you just talked about, Commissioner Barry. So I'm not opposed to some of that good quality work. I just don't want to support, basically how much more they're asking for when I feel like there's things that should be reined in first.
I will support this too. I'm quite confident that given everything that's going on in Washington under Doge and everything else, the whole DEI issue, the scrutiny of that this is going to be pretty analyzed very carefully before it ultimately gets implemented. But I do think it's brought great value to West Michigan. I'm looking at Macataw River watershed, over $600,000 over the years. And there's just too much involved here not to show our support, in my mind, to the good work that they're doing. But I'm confident Washington will modify this, given what I'm seeing. So, all right. Anything else? We're done? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Opposed?
No.
Do,
Thank you, Val.
yeah, do a roll call. Yeah. Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mr. Bruegger,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
No.
Mrs. Wenzel,
No.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
No.
Mr. Moss,
No.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Going back to Sylvia's motion on contract 2603 in the ratification of contract packet. You want to address this?
Sure. Yeah, so mostly I want to just call some attention to,
Do you have a motion? Or do?
I thought we had a motion.
I'm sorry, do you have
Read
did
it.
somebody motion and second it? I'm sorry, to go into
Yeah,
discussion.
So Sylvia,
Could we have Darrell come up first and
Need a
then
motion,
we
don't
need a
we?
motion.
Need a
first.
motion.
I'll make a motion.
Sylvia's got
Sylvia
the
got the
motion.
motion.
Chief's got it.
Doug's got the second.
I'll second your motion. I just want to make sure that Darrell has a chance. He's been sitting on the audience.
Okay, so let Sylvia introduce it and then we'll start talking about it.
okay. And I probably have some questions for Darrell, so I'm glad he's here. So in general,
Need a motion.
Oh, we didn't vote on the motion.
We just need a motion to begin discussion.
They told me it was Sylvia and Doug.
We did that already.
We just did that, John.
I don't think there was a
Well,
motion.
we didn't say it out loud. So if you want it said out loud, I will say to ratify,
We already did that one.
I know the contract for MPHI, is that good?
2603.
2603,
Okay,
currently pending on the post-execution ratification list.
all right.
There you go.
There's the motion. There's the second. All in favor?
Nope.
No, we're not voting.
Discussion.
Discussion now.
Michael, help. No, just kidding.
Wait, Sylvia.
I know, I'm looking at Mike. He knows the way I'm talking.
Rachel.
Okay, Sylvia, go ahead.
Okay, so I mostly just want to talk about kind of the system behind this and just shed some light on it. I have concerns about this, but I'm very cognizant of the fact that our health department is part of a public health system. And so some of these things are outside of they're partially outside of their control. So, and I'm sure you can help correct me if I get some of this wrong, but so there is this accreditation system that happens, and it's, I believe, every couple of years. There was some pause on it during COVID. I am not sure that accreditation is required by law. I don't believe that it is. I believe that it's something that MDHHS prefers and asks for, but I don't think it's required by statute. It seems to rotate and have different focuses, like each round of accreditation. And it appears to me that the focus this time is staff development and quality improvement and performance management, possibly development of a departmental dashboarding system, completion of, and I'm just taking stuff from the contract. So I have no problem with, with the focus. Some of these things are things we've been asking for the last 2 years. We want to see, quality improvement, performance management. We'd love to see a dashboarding system. So if that's what this is focusing on, great. And if this passes, I hope that, ultimately we see some benefit from the work that's done here. One concern that I had in looking at the contract was there were numerous references to personal health info and the sharing of it under this contract. There also, were some things outlined for how that information will be protected. But I do know that our residents have great pause when it comes to having their personal health information be shared, especially coming out of COVID. They're highly protective of who has their personal health information. So for me, that's a red flag. I don't personally want our residents' health information shared outside of Ottawa County. So then another thing that concerns me is, again, this is just a system issue, but the accreditation process is completed by a group of organizations. So that's MDHHS, MPHI, MELF, NACHO, ASTHO, and NNPHI. When you look at all of these organizations, a lot of this is very similar to what Commissioner Moss just spoke about. So much work in our government now is done by nonprofits, NGOs, and these are the things that Elon Musk has been uncovering on the federal level. So much work is doled out to private NGOs, and I would argue a lot of this work should be done by federal HHS and MDHHS instead of contracting it out to all of these NGOs. These NGOs have not been historically aligned with the current MAHA agenda. And there is a lot of corporate, you would say corruption, corporate capture of these NGOs. MPHI, who this contract is with, was actually created by our state legislature several decades ago, and it's continued to grow, likely outside of the scope of the statute that created it. It was created to primarily be a research entity, and now it's actually become a hand of MDHHS and does a lot of contracts and work for MDHHS. There have been a lot of concerns that those contracts and the work is actually to bypass transparency because they're not bound by normal government transparency standards and disclosure measures. And so MDHHS has been shuffling a lot of things towards MPHI and having them do what they should be doing, possibly to be getting away from some of those standards. So again, a concern that we've got some privacy stuff going on. Again, this is an NGO. Things aren't exactly looking right. Similar to some of the concerns that Commissioner Moss had regarding the last thing, is these entities, really all of them involved in this process are very progressive, promote the Democrat Party agenda, things like DEI, climate change. Pretty much you can go down quite a long list. And so, are we looking at having nonprofit agencies, guiding and directing our local health department in those directions and with that bent? Really, I totally appreciate that our local health department is working within the context of a public health system that is governed in this way and influenced in this way. This is not their fault. But I think it does highlight the need for state level change. But sometimes state level change begins at the county level where we say, this just doesn't look right. And if this isn't required by statute, then maybe we don't need to participate in it. And so for that reason, I just personally would advocate that we take a pause on this, that we talk to our legislators about it and ask them to take a look at, some of what's going on in the public health system. But again, I totally appreciate, our counties working within the context of bigger things happening. But for these reasons, I'm going to be voting against this just on principle that I don't agree with how things are being run.
Anyone else?
Yeah. Mr. Chair.
Doug?
Yeah, could we actually have Darrell come up? Because he's been, again, waiting. Appreciate you coming out to Fillmore, Darrell, and spending some time with us. So.
It's my pleasure. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Darrell Glasshauer. I'm an epidemiologist with the Ottawa County Department of Public Health. I'm here to talk about the contract. That's the topic of this agenda item. It's a contract for $10,000 from the Michigan Public Health Institute. The main thrust of it is for performance management and helps us achieve our mission. And our mission is working together to assure the conditions that promote and protect public health for all. Within that mission at the health department, it is our commitment to excellence and meeting the minimum public health requirements for accreditation established by the state of Michigan. So this is part of that goal of achieving excellence and maintaining it. Local public health accreditation happens every 3 years. And to some of the commissioners' questions about whether or not it's required, that's going to be a question for our corporate counsel. Regarding accreditation, there are basically two kinds that are available in Michigan. One is FAB, which is a national accreditation body. Public Health Accreditation Board is an acronym, and that's what it stands for. That is not mandatory, but I do believe that in the state of Michigan, local public health accreditation is required for a local public health department to function. And again, I'd put that to Corporation Counsel. It's a fair question. And I'm going to operate under the assumption that it is.
I think you may be right about that. I think it might be that it's not required by certain entities, but there is some element of it that's required.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. The grant, it's for $10,000 just to help us prepare for accreditation, which we're required to do. Our cycle is, again, every 3 years, and we're up in 2026. It's a process where there are a number of different minimum program requirements. There's documentation that reviewed it. It's a grueling 2 weeks where folks from the state of Michigan come and visit us to make sure that we're meeting those minimum public health requirements. For this grant, it helps us just get spun up so that we are ready for the modules around performance management. We're going to use this funding, would like to use this funding for training our staff to create that culture of performance management, to create a deep bench of understanding, just because there's always turnover. So a lot of times we just need to be reminded of the work that we need to be doing. So there's two main deliverables. One is that we'd like to have staff be trained on performance management through a couple of different trainings through the summer. There's a couple of groups that are working on finding trainings that are a good choice for us. The vendors will be external ones, and they will not be MPHI. The other side of the coin is that MPHI requires us to do some pre-recorded trainings or modules for those that are listed, a number of those that are listed on the grant, just so that those that are associated with the grant have also been reminded about performance management activities, things like plan, do, study, act cycle, formulating assessment questions, collecting and organizing data, and embedding performance management into our work and culture. The modules basically fulfill a checkbox requirement for accreditation. It's like an hour and a half or 2 hours of self-paced asynchronous training, and we hand in a certificate as part of the deliverable process. But the main portion of it would be in-person training for our staff. So hopefully that sheds some light on what the grant is for. Are there any other questions?
I do have a question. Back to, there's a lot of privacy language in the contract. So what is your understanding of that? Is there much privacy information transfer during this process, or how does that go?
Well, that's a great question. We have no intention under the umbrella of this contract of transmitting any PHI to MPHI or any other entity. The goal for us is just to receive training. The training that we receive is going to be done in a manner where if there's anything that's collected, it might be like pre-post tests to see like, did this achieve its goal? Did people like it? Should we do this again if funding was available? Things like that. So no PHI will be transmitted under this contract.
Okay. Maybe I can address that too. As I look at the contract, we've got, there's a HIPAA paragraph, but there's also Exhibit D, privacy requirements for sensitive projects. And it, among other things, it says subcontractor staff working on privacy sensitive projects will comply with the additional confidentiality and security procedures described below. And then it goes on about all the reporting that you would expect to see under like HIPAA, right? And it's a whole exhibit. So it's if there's going to be a violation of that confidentiality, then there's going to be a breach of this contract because it's pretty clear that that's covered in here.
Anything else I can help with, commissioners?
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
I need to do a roll call on this one, 10,000?
I have one comment.
Joe?
Yeah, I appreciate learning that the vendors that will be doing the training are not MPHI. I do appreciate that. And as I have looked at the MPHI organization over the last few years, I just want to remind the board that it is extremely woke. It is the far left of the left. It's captured ideologically. So yeah, I personally would, support, the $10,000 in training, from the general fund or contingency or something like that. But I do not support working and tying ourselves with a contract that is optional to MPHI. So if anyone's interested in funding this through contingency or something else, I would second that motion. But I vote no on MPHI.
We'll take a roll call on this. Rachel, please.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
No.
Mrs. Medema.
No.
Mrs. Wenzel.
No.
Mr. Barry.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Bruegger.
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
No.
Mrs. Rhodey.
No.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Okay. Next on the agenda, that takes care of the action items, right? Okay, so next thing on the agenda, are committee reports. Do we have any reports on the committees to report? No, none? Okay. Now this is the second time for public comment. If there's anyone that would like to address the board, welcome. Okay, no public comments. So go into discussion items, and the first is to you, Gary. The discussion is whether or not we should have more than one monthly board meeting. And just to tee that up, we had the staff look at the cost and the time associated with these meetings as a comparison. So just to give us something to talk about too.
Thank you.
And what we compared was the time of the meetings so far this year compared to the meetings over the last 2 years, both with regard to hours and with regard to cost. And the average over the last 2 years per meeting, and there were 2 meetings a month, you'll see this on page 2, was about 6.2 hours per meeting. So it works out to be about 7.2 hours a month for meetings at the cost of about $93,000 just for administrative cost, and not including, mileage and a few things like that you'll see on the bottom of the footnote on page 2, compared to what we estimate if we stay on pace of one board meeting a month, it'll be around 51,000. So about half the cost and about half the time is what we project. And so those are just the numbers for you to look at and talk as we tee this thing up to have a conversation. Sure. So
I'd really like to move forward with this as it is until we have our new administrator hired and have him in here for a couple months, and then have his opinion as we go forward, and kind of gives his impression what's going on with the meetings and how he feels if we need more input or analyzation of how we're
interacting. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I generally support that idea as well. I do like the idea of adding either a third, meeting day, possibly go back to 4. But so in general, I would prefer that, but I'm not opposed to continuing to add special meetings if they're needed in the short term.
Joe, when you said add a third, what did you mean a third meeting day?
Like add a second Board of Commissioners meeting if it's needed.
Oh, in addition to the finance administrator. Okay, got it.
If
Right.
when we need it, like we've got one coming up.
Currently, we're doing it with special meetings, which meets the need. Long term, especially working with a new administrator, it might be wise to add another meeting day, especially with things like strategic planning and other things like that. That way, maybe you could kind of segment different items from agendas a little bit differently instead of having very full, large agendas. Maybe one of those board meeting days could have a slightly different focus. Still normal board meeting, but just kind of segment the work so that there's less on one day.
Yeah, when we have the strategic planning, that'll be a focused.
Right, it will be, yes. I agree.
Back, it could be a half a day that we go through the work session after our strategic planning and what we decided. I couldn't agree more on that.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I think if we, oh, sorry.
You can go.
I was gonna say, if we get rid of corporate counsel, we'll save a lot of money.
Ron's like,
Go
I'm
Ron.
fine, watch it.
Sorry.
Was that a motion?
No.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Allison.
I lead by your.
Yes.
Allison has a serious comment, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Commissioner Kyers, I think you got some good words of wisdom there with potentially waiting for administrator to come on. We're pretty close to that time and having some feedback. And at the same time, I think we've been at the meetings, and I think I can speak for myself that I believe the committees we're spending a lot of time at, and the ones I'm feeling sorry for, I guess, are those who are waiting for a very long time, waiting to speak, to present to us something on the committee level. I'm not sensing it as much at our Board of Commissioner meetings, but I do feel like at the committee level, we are spending too much time. And I also feel that for us to give the best service to our community when we have that large of packets to get ready, and we're putting it all into one day, because really at that committee level, it's really 3, because we have the Health and Human Services. They're now on that committee as well, and Planning and Policy, as well as Finance and Administration. And so that's a difference that I'm noticing. Just presentations. Anyway, it's just food for thought.
I'm gonna make sure I understand. So you guys on the alignment committee are working your tails off, but you're talking more than that here. Make sure I understand.
Yeah, I wasn't really tagging that one. That was a separate committee. So at the moment on our committee days that we have Planning, Policy, and Finance and Administration, from my perspective, those are the meetings that are taking so long, because that's where because we're working as a whole board, we're kind of treating it as a first stab at discussing. And so that's where a lot of the work is taking place. And we added Health and Human Services to Planning and Policy this year. And so in theory, we have 3 committees meeting, but only 2, right? Does that make sense?
Do you think that if we had Health and Human Services not part of planning, that we would save that much time? Do you think we would, or is it not a material issue to?
I think you'd have to reorganize more than just that if you're trying to be.
So let's make sure we bring this up when we have our strategic planning discussion, to how we can be most efficient. Because I remember, Allison, you brought up the idea that when we were talking about these committees, that you thought that maybe just the alignment needed to be a standing committee, right? As a possibility. And clearly the way you guys are working, it seems like it is already. So those are the kind of things we should put on the agenda I think.
One question I have on the alignment. Do you have a sense for how much of the initial, look is done? Is it possible? Oh, you're actually going to get more busy. Never mind.
No, I don't think so. I think the initial look is really, I mean, we're going through the interviews pretty quick, but we're getting through a bunch of the initial stuff. We're finding alignment is really going faster. And I think once we do the first year of alignment, I think we've gone a long way. So then the interviews process is really, really getting good. So,
Okay.
in my opinion.
That's good. All right. That's good. That's really good. Yeah. Okay.
Just one other comment. I think one of the times that this came up was at a finance committee meeting where we were talking about how long it's taken for things to go from this is a need to getting through the process to actually getting all the way here, because we only have one meeting a month that things can land on the agenda for. So I think we were seeing a potential need for anything that needs to be sped up. We don't have a regular meeting to put that at. So I think that's probably just the piece that we have to be watchful for. Like, is that happening? Is there a need there? So.
But I think Karen would tell us that, or whoever has to do that, in my opinion. So
I guess we can always call a special meeting if there's a, huge emergency.
our administrator would be right all over that.
Mhm.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Next thing on the agenda is Doug, sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the cost analysis here. Not quite sure how that all breaks out, but, one thing that I think Commissioner Rhodey talked about that I think makes sense to me is, there's only one meeting a month, and if staff don't have their action item ready by that meeting, then they have to wait an entire month, right? And I don't think that's, the most efficient way we can do things. I understand special meetings. But I also think that staff knowing that if they miss that train at the end of the month, they don't have to wait an entire month for another train to come by, right? I mean, I think frequency of meeting, it seems that there will be some cost. I'm not sure 51,000 to do that, is the right number. Maybe it is. But just the idea of, for example, apparently the $10,000 for health didn't pass. And I heard Commissioner Moss saying that he'd be okay with general fund funding of that. Did they have to wait an entire month to bring it back to us? Shouldn't they be able to bring it back to us in a couple weeks? I mean, I think the agenda is probably closed today for that. Otherwise, I'd propose that. But just the fact that, when commission, when Congressman Heisinger goes to Washington and if he only went one day a month, I think District 4 residents would be upset with that, right? And if we're saying we're only going to work one day a month, I don't think that's the most efficient use of our time. We can 2 meetings a month and, maybe look at this cost and how we can bring that down. But, I understand what Phil is saying about, meeting with our administrator and asking him what he thinks. But at the end of the day, it's a decision of this board. I'm in favor of, next month, obviously, we have a bunch of special meetings for the administrator. I'm in favor of bringing it up in July and just making sure that staff have that reliability of having 2 trains a month as opposed to 1. And if I don't make it, I got to sit in the station for a month, right? So
I think it's a learning curve for all of us, and the staff figures that out in time. So, okay, Gary, so administrator update.
I do have to tell you, Commissioner Zylstra, that Regina does a great job in letting, department heads know that the train is about ready to leave the station.
that was a metaphor. I understand that. This is not a train.
So, and again, I think everybody's gotten more and more used to this process. And, but again, I couldn't agree with you more that it's a board decision and you should wait till a new administrator's here. And, I'm sure he'll be, very engaged in that process. So, well, the month of May is come and gone, and as you all know, the portal has closed on the application process for a new county administrator. We've spent a significant amount of time, Karen and Ron and myself, working through some of the logistical things that are I laid out to you in a couple long, lengthy emails that I probably don't have to repeat myself. But again, we're taking direction from Double Hall and sharing with us their process. So again, we're moving forward with that. We've had multiple department heads and elected meetings throughout the month. That's a normal thing where department heads schedule meetings and gives them an opportunity to update myself, and if there's any information that they have to get to the board, or again, if they want any type of proposals, they know that they got timelines to meet. We had a connect over lunch in Hudsonville. I participated in the National Day of Prayer event at Zeeland City Hall, and they had a relatively nice gathering there while we all stood out in the pouring rain. So we enjoyed that. I attended Grand Valley Metro Council meeting, executive board meeting last week. And again, the Metro Council is very interested in a lot of activities. They're now partnershiping with Kent County Parks and Ottawa County Parks because they know that the issue of Ottawa County has been pretty successful in obtaining grant dollars and things of that nature. So naturally, I thought it was interesting that they wanted to get together with our parks group and talk about some strategic planning on how they go after dollars with our assistance. And so again, that'll be our groups working together with theirs. We had a legislative forum this month that was very well attended, heard a lot of positive and good feedback. And again, everybody would like to see those continue. And it helps when everybody's on the same page and again, partnering with each other on various issues. The Insurance Authority, we've had work group and board meeting, and we discussed a lot of the open situations that you know, legal counsel and stuff does with the Insurance Authority. On May 15th, the sheriff hosted a Peace Officers Memorial Recognition Day. It took place at noon. I think they pretty much emptied this building out with people that attended. So that's good for the staff over at the Sheriff's Department to see that kind of support. We've been doing a lot of work the last couple weeks, working with the Health Department on a new solid waste ordinance. Again, it's time to put that initiative back together, and it hasn't been updated for quite some time. So we've been hashing through that. If you didn't have a chance, the Idaho Explorers Camp grand opening was last week, Friday. I, for one, think that the county has a lot of jewels when it comes to the county parks. And the Idaho Explorers Camp is one of the finest jewels in that bucket. So again, if you get a chance this summer, you know, it's worth, you know, skipping a meeting to take a walk around the lake out at Ottawa Sands. So we'd highly recommend that. A couple other things that are going on around here. You may see some yellow tape on the sidewalk approaches to the building. We're in the process now of getting some quotes for replacement. But we also know that the trees are rooting underneath those sidewalks. So anything we do out there will probably require either derooting trees or tearing those old trees out and putting some smaller ones that they can take care of 25 years from now. We also know that landscape design has said, if you're going to tear the trees out, you might as well replace the shrubs. So we're going to put a couple packages together and that the board can decide what they want to do. But again, that's our main entrance, and I think it would behoove us to, you know, make it stand out a little bit. So we've also been told that they're in the process of doing an RFP for continued signage around the roadway and stuff. And if you come in off Fillmore, you'll see two new signs up by the family court. They're gray and they aren't these massive letters that everybody can see when you drive through the main road. So it'll be a description along with what buildings are where. So the chat box is Shannon Feldner is championed that process, and she believed probably by mid-September that will be completed. That process will be completed, and we can start using that system. Oh, and not to leave the board out, but next week we'll be getting some new technology in the boardroom here that'll show how you vote, and we'll come into the 21st century. So again, and I think staff has been working on that, and it's guaranteed it's going to work perfectly. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you.
Can we ask a couple questions?
Sure, yeah.
Do you know any more, Gary, about the voting? Like, is that going to be able to be searchable, like how we vote, or what's the use of the voting technology?
I don't have a clue. That was being reviewed before I got here. All I know is they're going to be able to tracked information a lot better than going back and looking at YouTubes and figuring out who said what. And, so.
Do you know, Rachel? Are you able to share a little bit?
Yeah, so it's going to, we're hoping to be able to get actual so the public can see. You guys will all be able to use it on your computers to log in, and then you'll just vote. There won't be an actual roll call vote. Like, I won't list your names or Justin, and you'll just vote, and then it will show up, and then it will automatically transfer into the minutes as well. So the voting, you know, your names and how you voted, yea or nay, will all be in the minutes. I'd have to ask if it's searchable, but it will, you know, all be documented there. So we're excited about it.
Thank you.
As someone that's listening online, but they're just listening to the meeting, how do they know how people vote?
We have a test run on Thursday. So I will, we'll make sure it's all, so we're not going to be doing anything through YouTube like that anymore. There's going to be, Granicus has its own video streaming that will be happening. So I'm assuming it's probably all through there. There has to be a way that the votes are shown on the screen, I'm assuming. But we'll find more of that out on Thursday. But I'm going to make sure to document that to get answers.
I would strongly recommend that we still vote, even if we are cataloging our vote on a computer. Residents absolutely will want to hear us vote.
I kind of like saying yay or nay.
I do too, yeah. That's the job, right?
I just want to thank the commission for attending our department heads and elected meeting a couple weeks ago. We had a demonstration and discussion with the sheriff and his staff over the commitment this board made for body cameras and car cameras and all kinds of cameras. And again, I think everybody that was there has a much better understanding, and the department heads and the electeds as well. So, and I appreciate you showing up to something like that. That shows them that you're interested in what you've purchased in the past.
Thank you for setting it up too.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting.
Sure was.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap this up with commissioner comments. Let's be sensitive to time. Let's try to limit our comments to 3 minutes, all right? Or less, as Joe said last time. 1 to 3, I thought I heard you say. Go ahead.
I get to go first?
Why not?
Okay, I'd echo what Gary said about that. Department head meeting was really interesting, and if you were not able to attend that morning, I would recommend speaking to the sheriff about some of the very interesting body cam footage that will be coming out later. It was very, very interesting. And you get to see firsthand what some of our officers are handling and dealing with. It gives you renewed appreciation for the danger they put themselves in and the work they do. So that's number one. I wanted to just highlight one more time that I'm really thankful for the direction of the Trump administration. I'm grateful for the very proactive work they're doing. It is reaching all the way down to the local level. So I'm very thankful for that. One of our budget adjustments today was that $900,000 grant that was rejected last year and approved this year. And 4 commissioners, while in DC, asked that that be terminated, and they did it. So I'm very thankful for that and the direction that we're going. I'd like to continue to see those types of reforms go forward. So that's all.
I'm very much enjoying participating in the Citizen Police Academy alongside of about 24 other citizens. It's been very informative. I'm enjoying learning a lot, and I will look forward to sharing maybe some more details at another meeting. We still have another maybe 6 weeks left of it. And I appreciated Lakeshore Advantage's meeting that we had here at the county last week. I think one of the slides that they had shown was how important energy is to our economic community. And I am appreciative of the Trump administration stepping in and putting a pause on the closing of the J.H. Campbell plant. So those are just a couple updates for myself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what's heavy on my heart right now is what's gone on with the damage that we heard from some of our citizens in some neighborhoods. Commissioner Barry and I spent some time in Wakazu Woods. Of course, Zeeland Township has sustained quite a bit as well. But I'm sitting trying this evening to think creatively outside the box. You know, what departments can we deploy? Who can we ask to pitch in? You know, can facilities, parks, can we get involved to try to help now that we have a better idea of what's going to be covered by insurance and what's not? You know, are there assets that we can do to help a special situation like this? I think, we should spend some time with Lou and see what we can do to maybe pull a few more resources together to help some of these folks. So that's definitely on my mind. And then I just want to just say thank you to the community of Zeeland. We celebrate Memorial Day in a very special way. Our city attorney, Jim Donkersloot, who happens to be a veteran himself, has been reading stories about those who have given the ultimate sacrifice every Memorial Day. And when you drive by our cemeteries and you know these stories, it just brings a different level of gravity to what has taken place there and how much has been sacrificed. And this year's story was about a young man who was newly married, had an 18-month-old son, volunteered to go to the Korean War, pilot making a low pass and took a direct hit and died instantly, and just described as handsome and infectious personality and just so much ahead of him, so much potential. And, when you find out at the end of the day that this young man that gave everything was actually the uncle of our current mayor, Kevin Kleinstra, you just see that weight, that these families that survive the loss of a loved one that they carry going forward. And so I just want to invite anyone who would really like to see a beautiful ceremony to come and join us at the next Memorial Day in the Zealand Cemetery and just be part of it. And the Boy Scouts put out hundreds of American flags on all of the gravestones. And I know this is repeated in other places in Ottawa County, but I just want to spotlight something special in Zealand.
Good. Echo a lot of the comments. Lakeshore Advantage was great. Memorial Day service in Grand Haven was great. I think the highlight for me the past 30 days, though, was the Ottawa Sands Item Explorers Camp dedication or ribbon cutting. It was phenomenal. That is an incredible park. And I would reiterate that in the future, it would be awesome if those who can't necessarily afford it, who live in Ottawa County and are contributing to it, would be able to, get some sort of discount in the future. But that was an amazing service. And we even had a Baltimore Oriole chime in to speak a little bit. So that's all I got.
Yeah, last week I had the privilege of attending Western Conference for NACO, sitting on the Ag Committee. We visited South Dakota Extension, and it's a different world out there. I mean, for every one person out there, there's 5 cows. So it's not Ottawa County, but it's still agriculture, lots of agriculture. And I thought it was neat that the 4-H, the top 2 programs are gun shooting and rodeo. So kind of a little redneck going on there, but they were pretty cool people. So that was really cool. But they also talked about one of the things that 4-H does really connects with the chambers, which we don't do much out here. So I'm going to work with the 4-H and the chambers. I'm like, that's a good connection because a lot of the businesses can use the 4-H kids. One of the top panels that talked there was Western Energy, and they just totally hit on what we're dealing here with consumers, which was just great for me to listen to. It was spot on. So Matt Chase really emphasized, how he's here not as a Democrat, as a Republican, but he's there to help us all as commissioners do our work. So he's just going and telling us what's happened in our administration. And the biggest thing everybody's worried about is communal mental health. So it's not only in Ottawa County, it's across the whole United States. So very, very good, interesting, and very good panel. So thank you very much for sending me. So I appreciate that more than I could say. So.
Good. Thanks, Phil. I just want to say thank you to Administrator Rosema and Deputy Administrator for answering your work on the administrator search, getting us the information hopefully soon that we all need to make our decision. One comment I wanted to make is that, in the past, we may have, given the administrator more leeway on his deputy hire. One of the things that I talked about with Mitch is that, we're a diverse board. And we're looking for someone as administrator who can handle that diversity of viewpoints, right? And, I know in the past that we've kind of given the administrator fairly, wide latitude as far as his hire, but maybe that's something we should think about is like, what can the board input be on the deputy to make sure that we have a leadership team that is themselves, able to, between 2 people, represent the full spectrum of Ottawa County, both this board and residents. So just want to put that on everybody's radar, and maybe we can have a discussion about that next week. So.
I just have a sort of a variety of different topics here. I was invited to join a work group on real estate transfer evaluations here at the county. If you buy or sell real estate that's got a septic service or a well, requires an inspection from the health department for that transfer to take place. And this work group is just looking at some new ways of possibly privatizing some parts of that or in periods of high demand. There's always a time frame for when inspections need to be done in a real estate transaction. So it's made up of people from the health department and local realtor association and people from conservation group here with the county. I found that interesting. I also gave county updates to the local boards at Port Sheldon Township and Olive Township, just to check in with those folks. I agree with everything folks said about the Lakeshore Advantage meeting. It was really interesting. They really focus on gross domestic product, and they measure that as a company that makes products that leave the area and cash comes back to the area as how you build the GDP. That's the growth and grows an area. There are three keys they talked about were land for manufacturing locations, which is getting tight in Ottawa County, people having access to a skilled workforce, and of course, housing, because people want to live close to where they work. And it seems like every major meeting I've gone to as a county commissioner, housing seems to come up as a topic. So interesting that came up there. But anyway, very interesting, all the things that go on. I appreciate.
I just wanted to give a shout out to yesterday, the Jennison Memorial Day Parade was on, and the vets, PJ Muir spearheaded it, and Veterans Services, but they did a moving memorial. And that's the first time I've seen that done. It was a casket draped in a flag. All of the service, every service flag was on the back of it. And there was a large bronze statue with a soldier carrying a deceased soldier over his shoulder. And I was honored to be asked to be a part of that because I was one of the individuals that sat and had my arm rested on the casket. And I got to see the perspective of the craziness of candy and all of that. And then groups of people that just stood and put their hands over their hearts and the actual meaning of the day. It was very sombering and very moving. I was grateful to be a part of that. They also handed out over 200 bags. Our vets that walked in the parade handed out bags that were just for veterans. It had information on our veteran services. It had information on the local VA banquet, a military coin, all sorts of information for vets. So I think they did about 300 bags and they handed out over 200 of them. And that was it. I'm looking forward to the groundbreaking at the building on July 1, and we're working on getting the info out for that.
All right, I have a couple things. One, I also enjoy going to the Lakeshore Advantage event, and it was very interesting to me how they talked about having reliable energy is so important to our business community. And man, we really dodged a bullet with that one. So I'm very thankful for the emergency order that was put in place, but mindful of the fact that it's only a 90-day reprieve for us. So we definitely need to keep our eyes on that. Also thankful that today, the COVID vax was removed from the CDC schedule for students and pregnant women. So for families preparing with their back to school immunizations, you want to make sure that they're aware that that is no longer on the schedule. There's been a lot of conversation about changes in federal funding for CMH and Medicaid funding cuts. I just want to say that, autism services and residential care funding, both are greatly in need of more funding. And so we'll just continue to look for ways to advocate for those funding needs amidst other changes that may happen. And then lastly, I know I've had some disagreement with Administrator Rosema on a few things in regards to the administrator search, but I think it's important to put some thoughts on the record. So while we may have a friendly disagreement, I'm going to share part of an email that I sent to him about some of my concerns about the process. So it reads, the statute gives the responsibility and authority to hire a county administrator to elected county commissioners, and as such, the process, including the candidate information, should be fully transparent. Candidates should not be essentially eliminated in private, non-transparent meetings at which county commissioners are not present. Commissioners should be allowed ample time with applicants' information to come to their own judgment on candidates, rather than candidates being effectively eliminated by county employees in double haul. A glance at a notebook filled with 20 out of 39 candidates during a closed session does not ensure commissioners are able to give all candidates just, appropriate, and adequate considerations. Perhaps the process is designed to reduce the pool before the closed session with county commissioners. I believe my requests, which were echoed by other commissioners at an open meeting, are reasonable based on the statutory responsibility of county commissioners, which is not delegated in the law to others. So I again request the following: that all commissioners be able to pick up the full applications, information gathered from any interviews, and candidate packets collected by Double Hall for all 39 candidates prior to our meeting for closed session on June 4. Due to the volume of information, that all board members receive this on May 29 to allow for adequate time to prepare for closed session. Additionally, I'm again asking whether the community interviews by the citizen work group will be open to the public and available to watch by video. As expressed above, a recap of interviews which will influence the process by individuals who are not statutorily assigned the responsibility to choose the county administrator is not transparent to either county commissioners or the public. However, I am hopeful that with the strong candidates that Double Hall has mentioned, the entire board will be able to come to a consensus on who will be chosen to be the next county administrator. There's no need to short circuit or have a non-transparent process. So I just continue to encourage our county to move towards making sure that everything is done in a very transparent manner that the public can trust.
Good Chair. Could I ask you to read my response?
Sure. Yes, says Sylvia, I understand that I'm not going to be able to say much that is going to change your mind regarding the process. We have followed the direction of Double Hall when it comes to not disclosing the identity of those making application for this position. We are required in doing this for the protection of the candidates until such time they are reviewed and identified to the board by Double Hall, June 4. Many of the applicants do not wish to be named until such time they are moved forward to the citizen work group and the full board for a public interview on June 12. The citizen work group is also a closed session meeting, and they will not be debating or deliberating the candidates, just looking at their strengths and weakness in various categories. I cannot recommend a live feed for this part of the process because of privacy protection, but we'll check with Mitch and Justin regarding the possibilities of recording it for your review on the 12th. This is once again what I can share with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, let me wrap it up then. So it's obvious, it's been a very busy month. In fact, it's been a thrilling month. All the different groups that you guys have talked about it, I think I was participating and it was incredible, including the Idaho Explorer Camp, which everybody should take advantage of. The veterans events yesterday throughout our Ottawa County were numerous and very impactful. I was at the City of Hudsonville's event and was able to participate in that. We just can't thank our veterans enough, those that have passed and those that are continuing to serve. So I thought that our work on the JX Campbell plant was reasonable and responsible. So I appreciate the board's efforts in that regard, all the way to where we stand today. I too thought that the body cam information from the Sheriff's Department was incredible service, incredible pieces of tools for our county that we just don't know. Most of us don't know. But man, are we lucky to have a department like that with those kind of resources, as we all know. So in any event, with that, I look forward to the administrative search process. I do believe it will be transparent. We've been talking about this for 2 months, and I do believe we'll get the most qualified candidate out there. So thank you very much. This meeting's adjourned.